Welcome to our podcast, Thriving in Higher Education Careers. So happy that you are here with us today. And I am Dr. Yvette Myrick, and I'm joined with
Dr. Estelle Young. And we are super excited today because we're going to share with you our tips for networking. So, of course, we hope you've already listened to our interview with Fernando Brown, who's an amazing networker, and he can kind of break it down into steps. So, we definitely want you to listen to that. But today is more to add even more tips to that repertoire.
So to start us with, a lot of our tips are really out of our book, Thrive in Higher Education Careers, but this gives us a chance to take the tips from the page and actually talk about it a little bit. So if you want all the tips, we're just going to hit on maybe 2 or 3 tips and elaborate on those. But if you want all the tips, they're right in our book, Thrive in Higher Education Careers. Please go to the book and learn more about the tips and elaborate it with your friends or talk about it, know professional development. So we're just going to hit on just a few tips, okay? So Estelle, you want to get us started for the audience on what is one of your favorite tips, I guess, from the book?
Yeah. So, um, one of the things I really loved about the book is it features one of my favorite authors who is he's old, Stephen Covey. His book was about 30 years old. Uh, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And in fact, if you Google it, the book is available for free. You can find a copy of it for free. But one of his kind of principles that he uses is that our environment with this given to us, our higher education institution is fixed with the people, the resources, the governing structure, all of that we have to consider as fixed. What is unique is our reaction to it. And we can choose as individuals, we can choose to react one way or the other. So we can choose, and we do often, I know I have, we can choose to be, this is a professional design, by the way. We can choose to be reactive. And if the whole circle there is our institution, we can choose to be reactive. We can choose to spend our time thinking about um, offering real estate in our brain to thoughts about how people and resources and other things in the environment are affecting us. Um, and oh, my boss said this to me, blah, blah, blah. Or my coworker did this to me. Or so and so sabotaged this. I can't get ahead here. If I think like that, or if I listen to other people who are thinking like that, what's happening is that I'm allowing the environment to be negative and cringing down upon me. But, and my power is small. Um, my power over the environment is small. But, says Stephen Covey, if you take a proactive status, you've got the same environment, same exact circle of the environment. But what you're focusing on is those things that you can control rather what the environment is. You're focusing on the what can I do questions. What can I do to make my career more meaningful? What can I do to remind myself of all of my contributions, to acknowledge myself, to appreciate myself rather than waiting for external accommodation? What can I do to take care of myself and not be so overwhelmed? And apropos to the topic of the day, who are the most positive and inspiring people at this institution or outside? How can I interact more often with them? And one of the things that I started to realize after reading Stephen Covey was that there are positive people all around you. And what it takes is that the people who are a negative influence, they come, towards you and they make their presence known. But positive people are kind of waiting, in general, waiting, quietly, kind of um, in the background. And just like Orlando said, people are not going to land from the sky. Um, you have to go and seek them out. And so the notion is that you need to go and look for positive people. And positive people are the ones who aren't complaining. Positive people are the ones who, aren't taking credit for everything. Positive people are the ones who are at work and whose door isn't closed, and on and on and on. Positive people are actually pretty visible if you start to look for the classic characteristics of a positive person. Um, so those are the principles that I wanted to share with you, um, because they've been instrumental in my life, and because I really think that they apply to most of us. So Yvette, I know you wanted to share
Mhm.
a principle or a tip as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and I really like the tip that you shared. It is so relevant to what we're talking about. And like Orlando said, sometimes you have to go out there and go beyond your comfort zone and go to those positive people. So thank you. I definitely, resonate with that tip. One of the tips that I really like in the book as well is the tip on focus on what you can control, your interpretation. So there are things that happen in our environment, from jobs and situations that's not always the best. And sometimes, in the position that we're in our job, we can't control everything that happens in our department, our supervision, our jobs, our situation. Like we can't control COVID-19 sometimes, but it's your interpretation of it and dealing with it with the best tools you have possible and turning something that could probably be negative into something positive, your interpretation. So I know in my career, there have been things where when you ever heard people say that's out of my pay rate, is people make these decisions above you, but it impacts you. And you feel like, well, I can't change the whole thing, but it's how you interpret it. It's so key. I see some things happen to people, the same people in the same department, um, they could be reassigned a different area at their college, or people could be laid off. The same two people in the same department, and one person, their interpretation of it is, "Wow, how could they do that to me? I've been here for years. Um, I haven't been able to. This going to affect me reaching my goal, or they took away my funding." Things like that. And the same coworker could look at it a different way. Yeah, we don't have the funding anymore, but let's look at opportunities for other funding. And maybe we could find a bigger grant or other possibilities or something else. So it's your interpretation sometimes. The same thing can happen to two different people, is how you interpret it and your thought process, and taking that negative thought and making something positive. And on the page, the quote that I really like on the page about your interpretation is the Serenity Prayer. And sure, a lot of people have heard this prayer many times over. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So sometimes when things happen to you and you cannot change it, but it's your viewpoint, how can you look at it and say, these are the things I can change, and the courage to go ahead and make those changes? And how do you know the difference between the two? So it's one of the things that resonate with me is your interpretation of it. And like I said, sometimes the same thing can happen to several people, and the difference is your interpretation of it. So thank you.